All right, in this problem, we are being asked to find the value of x if the area of the triangle is 108 feet squared. So how do we do that? Well, first we got to start by how do we find the area of a triangle? That's 1/2 times the base times the height. So let's look at what we have here. We got a height and we also have a base. That's good news. So we're going to say our area is equal to 1/2 times height, x, times base, x plus 6. Now, when you see that we're going to be multiplying two x's together, it tells us we're going to get a quadratic. And what we're going to need to do is solve that quadratic, whether we use the quadratic formula, whether we factor, complete the square. There's lots of different ways to solve a quadratic, but we know once we see this, that's what we're going to be dealing with. So 1/2 times x, that's just 1/2 x. We need to multiply that by two terms, so we're going to have to use the distributive property here. 1/2 x times x makes 1/2 x squared. 1/2 x times 6, that's going to give me 3x. So what I've got is this quadratic. That's my area of the triangle, but they told us the area is equal to 108. So we're going to say this is equal to 108. Now, what I would recommend doing is taking that 108, moving it over to the other side, so this is equal to 0, and then we could just factor if the numbers allow. So minus 108 cancels, minus 108. We don't have a like term over here, so it's just going to make three terms. 1/2 x squared plus 3x minus 108 equals 0. We're now dealing with this quadratic, and if we can factor it, complete the square, use the quadratic formula, we can get our values for our solutions. Okay, now the positive, if we get a positive and we get a negative, the positive value is clearly going to be the solution because we can't have a negative number for x. That can't be a negative distance. That doesn't make any sense. So find the value of x. Great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these numbers here. I don't like having a 1/2, so I'm going to turn that into a 1, and that's going to allow me to work through this much easier. So how would I change a 1/2 to a 1? If I times it by 2. But if I multiply this first term times 2, I got to multiply the second term, the third term, and the other side. Everything needs to be multiplied by 2. So let's rewrite this equation out after multiplying by 2. 1/2 times 2 becomes 1x squared. Remember, we don't need to show the 1. 2 times 3 is going to give me a 6x. 2 times negative 108 is going to give me negative 216. And then 2 times 0, stuck with a 0 still there. So now this is a much cleaner quadratic to work with. Factoring it would be much easier to do. So factoring, we want to find two numbers that multiply together to make negative 216. But when you add them together, you're going to get a positive 6. Well, those two numbers right now that I'm thinking of are 18 and 12. Those multiply together to make 216. But remember, we got to make a negative. So one of these values, 18 or 12, has to be 216, or it has to be negative. If we want the middle term, bx, to be positive 6, do I want to put the positive as the 18 or as the 12? Well, 18 holds more weight than 12. It holds exactly 6 more values than 12. So we're going to keep 18 positive. We're going to make 12 negative. So all we're going to do here to factor this quadratic out is just say x in the first terms. Remember, x times x is what gives us our x squared. We want to keep 18 positive. We want to make the 12 negative. So now we have factored the quadratic into these two solutions. Okay? This times this would give me that. So now we solve. Well, zero product property tells us if this times this equals 0, either that's 0 or that's 0. So we're going to say x plus 18 equals 0. Make sure that's still in frame. Yep, you can see that. We'll solve that. Minus 18 cancels minus 18. X could be negative 18. Does that make sense for this problem? No, we can't have a negative distance, so it's not that. X minus 12 equals 0. We're going to add 12, x equals 12. So what I would tell you right now is that's the value I'm going to be using. Remember, we got two solutions. Quadratics hit in two parts on the x-axis. Those are our two solutions, two roots with this quadratic, but we can only use one of them because we're talking about a real life scenario, and negative value doesn't make any sense for our distance of x. So what is the distance of x? It's 12 feet tall, and then it would be 12 plus 6 feet long. So to answer the question, find the value of x, it's 12. How wide is this triangle? It's 12 plus 6. So that's 18, and it's 12 high. You know everything you need to know about that triangle. You just had to use a little bit of quadratics to get it done. Hopefully that makes sense. Study hard, and good luck on your upcoming test.